Hello. Excuse me. My name is Jim Howard, Howard, and this is a video on security, hospital security, and it's number 2. I'm going to try to answer. I don't think I can answer. I'm going to try to go to the point that a gentleman asked me, how can you convince management to provide a professional security department? And the honest answer is, I don't think you can. I think that the management pretty much has to already be programmed. You're going to get hospital management that is going to say, that they don't need security, or they're going to say that it's lost. That it loses them money. It doesn't make them any money. That the respiratory therapy department, they give treatments to people, that makes money. The X-ray department does X-rays. All these various people bring in money, but security doesn't. It doesn't do any good to show them cases where somebody exited the hospital and was attacked and raped or something, and they sue for not having adequate security, and it cost the hospital millions of dollars. You can show them those cases. Remember the one in St. Louis, I think it was. Also, I worked at a hospital, St. Joseph Hospital in Kansas City, Missouri, that was in a really bad neighborhood, and people were afraid to go there, and we ended up having a security officer who was shot, permanently disabled, and that was pretty much they had trouble getting people to go there, and that was when things will be a little bit different now, because you get locked in with an insurance company that says, you have this, you have to go to this hospital or whatever. Back then, you could pretty much choose which hospital you want to go to. But the bad publicity, the hospital actually ended up moving because of the people's fear, and not just the patients and not their family, not just those, but the staff doctors, would tell me, I only come here because the other hospitals, all the beds were filled, or one of my patients had to have surgery, and this is, that's the only reason. Because I'd say, doctor, I haven't seen you in, 2 months, and it was because of the neighborhood. We actually ended up having a second security officer less than a year later who was shot, but anyway, shot and killed. The hospital moved out of the neighborhood. The nuns, didn't say it's because of the neighborhood. They said, well, we have these external fire escapes on the building, and they need to be enclosed, and that would cost a lot of money. The reason was the neighborhood fear. I don't think you can, sometimes you're going to get management that will be enlightened and do the right thing. But you're going to get a lot of hospital management that's going to say, well, we don't need security, or they don't make us any money, or you're going to get them saying, well, yeah, we'll have security officers just so we can tell people in our little brochure when they admitted to the hospital, hey, we provide security. But, we're not going to arm the security. We're not going to train the security. So far as going to administration and saying these things and getting someone, another situation that I've run into is you can be, I found that at this one hospital that I had no desire to be, and I didn't apply for a director of security job, but I had more experience and more training than the guy that they hired in. But when they see you in uniform and when you're out there doing your job, they don't say, there's a guy some guy who shows up in a suit and who gives them a little resume there, they go with him. They're not going to. And two, sometimes you have, a director of security, and you'll see the director of security say, go to the cafeteria in the morning to have coffee with the other directors, the director of food service and purchasing and director of housekeeping or whatever, and they're all sitting at this table together. They're all with their suits and their ties on and whatever. A lot of times the director of security is sitting there and he's not helping. He's actually not helping himself, and he's not helping the department. He'll be sitting there saying, oh man, this dumb joker last night, you know what he did on the midnight shift? Well, that type of stuff. Or I worked for a director of security. He was an ex-Kansas City, Missouri colonel. He'd been director of hospital security after he retired from the police department. He was director of security at the public hospital. It was called General Hospital then, and later became Truman Medical Center. Well, while he was director of security there, I was working security at another hospital. And a police officer came in there, and he was coming in regular, Kansas, Missouri police officer, came in there regular with his wife who was sick. And so he was around a lot, and he saw us doing our job. And he said to me one time, I was over by the ER or whatever, he was there, and he said how professional that I was and how professional our security department was there. He said, can I ask you something? He said, over at General Hospital, he says, I work over there in the, or I'm not sure he was working then, but worked over there in the lockup unit where they had patients who were prisoners or whatever. And he said that he was over there, and a couple prisoners started giving him some trouble, and so he was fighting these two prisoners, and hospital security was, right there, and they didn't help him. What? And he said, yeah. He said, they told me, and he said, I didn't believe him. He said, they told me that their director of security said that they were positively never to interfere, never to get in there, never to, whatever. I'm going, And he said, no, he said, I went to the director of security. He said he used to be a Kansas City, Missouri police, officer. And he told me that was, his policy. I later ended up working for this guy. He ended up going to another hospital, and his director of security, I ended up, it was 2 or 3 hospitals down the line, I went to work for him. And to show you, this guy supposedly should have experience and know-how and knowledge and whatever. He bragged at a departmental meeting or whatever. He says, when somebody comes to me and complains about you guys, when somebody comes and says that so-and-so was rude to me when it came to a parking situation, or, jumped on me because I was driving the wrong way with my car through the parking lot or whatever, he says, when those people come to me and they complain about you, he says, I always agree with them. I say, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you shouldn't have done that. Yeah, that wasn't right. And then he says, and then I talk to them a while, and then he says, they're friendly to me. And he says, then at the last I say, security, we have a difficult job, and blah, 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 blah. And then he said, see, and he says, I turn them around. He didn't turn. When somebody goes in a situation like that and complains, and you say, yes, you're right, that's all they hear. They go back, to their department and go back to their friends or whatever. So that's just, this guy was not only bad in every area, and he was the director of security. I really think that I cannot find a way, I can't find something, you can't go to them and you can't change them. Either you got good administrators, or you don't. But let me tell you this little story. I was working at hospital, Trinity Lutheran Hospital in Kansas City, Missouri, and the director of security there, I've mentioned it before in some of these things, he had his secretary every day. Of course, on Monday morning, she was really busy because she had to do the weekends. She went through all of our activity sheets, and she pulled off everything, and she typed it up. security officer so-and-so found an open door in the respiratory therapy department. Security at such and such a time. Security officer so-and-so escorted an unruly drunk party out of the emergency room. Security responded to unlock 3 doors in the nuclear med department. All this stuff. And it went down to the assistant administrator's desk. Every, Monday through Friday, he got it. And the assistant administrator of the hospital, who was over security, he actually was buddies with the director of security, and they rode together. And then the director of security did, favors for him or whatever. So he was pretty, they were kind of hand in glove together. But the hospital administrator, he was a tough old nut. He was an administrator, and he was very good. He used to be an ex-truck driver. And the hospital assistant hospital administrator had a heart attack or bypass surgery or something, and he was out, laid up, off the job. And the director of security said, "No, Jim, I'm going to get fired. Oh, Mr. D, the hospital administrator, he doesn't like me." I kind of think that's right, because Mr. D one time came up, our security offices were on the 6th floor, and I never saw Mr. D out of the administrative wing, hardly ever. But he was up on the, he came up in the elevator, on the elevator, and there I was, on the 6th floor. And Mr. D said, "Where's Bob Ross's office?" I said, no, it's not here. I said, we want him, our office was there. I said, we want him as far away as we can get him. I said, he's down the hallway and around the corner to the right. I said, we couldn't get him any further away than that. And the hospital administrator says to me, "I don't blame you. I'd like to get him even further away from that if I could." And he went laughing down the hall. That was kind of unusual. Not unusual of me, but unusual for him to say something like that. Well, anyway, the assistant administrator was off. The director of security said, "No, Jim, Mr. D is he's going to fire me. He doesn't like me. And we're in trouble. The whole department is in trouble, it'll be bad. I don't know what's going to happen." I thought, nothing's going to happen to us. We do our job. Mr. D, the hospital administrator, of course, then started getting these reports every day of what we did, coming to his desk. I didn't think anything about it. One day, I was outside like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and out comes the hospital administrator. He'd been at a meeting, board of directors meeting, board of trustees meeting, who knows what kind of meeting, and he came out, and he came over to me, and he said, "Well, Jim, I'm going home now. Take care of the hospital for me. Make sure nothing happens to it, or we'll all be unemployed." And I said, "Oh, we do. We do the best we can. We take good care of it for you. We'll make sure we all have jobs here," or something to that effect. And he said, Jim," he said, "I really didn't realize what you guys did around here until I started getting those daily reports telling what you all did." And he said, "Really, I forget exactly, I really admire the work you guys are doing, and you guys are really, asset to the hospital, blah, 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 blah." And that was just, that was it. He went home. So maybe that's a little tip of something you could do, something like that. But if the hospital management isn't supportive of the security department, I don't know what to tell you, except maybe look for work elsewhere. One of the problems I've noticed with hospitals, and it causes a lot of these problems, is the hospital, you have a CEO who, you think runs a hospital. but the nurses, like 80% of the staff, and they have a director of nursing or whatever, and she, carries a lot of weight, and she can say, well, our licenses are at stake, and the Joint Commission this and this and that. You got the director of food service, he'll say, oh, the dietarian and the Joint Commission, and you got the medical staff, the director of the hospital administrator can't tell some doctor you're on the medical staff at the hospital, yes, you can come here, and you can't say you're off the staff. Everybody has their own turf, and it makes it really difficult. Everybody's looking out for themselves, and everybody is using, all of the department heads are all jockeying for power and to get ahead. As an example of this, the security department at this hospital I worked at, the director of security decided, I gave him hell about it, but he decided that he called a supervisors meeting and said, we're going to take over doing snow removal, we're going to get a new Jeep, that way to do it or whatever, and we're going to do snow removal, and it won't interfere with our security functions. And he said, this can be great for us, He said to the lieutenant, what do you think? Oh, great idea, boss, great idea. He said to the third shift supervisor, oh, great idea. He said to the day shift supervisor, what do you think, what do you think? Great idea, boss. Said to me, what do you think, Jim? I said, I think it's a terrible idea. And then I went through why I thought it was I said, let them keep their new Jeep. So he goes through this whole thing again, and then he goes back to me again, I gave him the same answer. And I thought it was a bad idea. But as an example of what I think causes a lot of these problems, so we get by then we got a new truck with a big old blade that we could put on the front of it to plow snow. So when I arrived at the director of security said, okay, Jim, do me a favor and take it and we'll park it on the food service dock. That's where we'll park it. So I drove it to the food service dock, pulled it in, locked it up, and the director of food service comes out. What are you doing? I said, well, we got this new Jeep for doing, and I tried to be a little PR, and, to hell with that, you get that thing off my dock. I don't want that damn thing. You get it out of here or whatever. Okay. Called the director of security. He said, I'm sure by then the food service director had gone in and called every other director that had a parking, Director of security says, take it over to the receiving dock and park they just built a brand new garage. In fact, the director of security had been off sick and gone or something for a long time, and I was acting director of security of the hospital. I was responsible for getting the garage certified and checked out, and getting the keys from the contractors that built it, and getting so. And the receiving dock was underneath there, brand new receiving dock, massive area, great, much better than what it used to be. They had a fantastic place, underneath the canopy, inside a garage where they could pull trucks in and unload and all that kind of stuff. I took it over there, put it over in the corner. Director comes out, you can't park that truck, park that truck here. It was everybody jockeying for position and for power, and it's not even security. We have our turf. We have the parking lots and the parking garages. If you want a door unlocked, you have to call us and we'll unlock it. Of course, it'll vary from hospital to hospital. If you want a lock changed on some door, if you want a key to your department, you have to come to security. If you want an ID badge, you have to come to security and get your ID badge. And they've all got this power, and it pulls at the fabric of the hospital. It doesn't work the way that it should. I think it causes a lot of these problems, and I don't think this video has helped you one bit. But let me end this here before I make an even bigger fool of myself, if that's possible. Thank you very much.